Howdy everyone, and today I'm looking at one of the very first Fuji XF lenses that were ever released for the system, the XF 18mm f2. It's currently available new for about £300 or $400 US, but you can find second-hand copies on eBay for far less money. This lens will only work with Fuji's mirrorless cameras. Its design philosophy is pretty clear. It's a lovely, small, wide-angle pancake lens with an impressively fast maximum aperture of f2. That means it's quite usable in low light, and it can give you somewhat out-of-focus backgrounds too, if you get close to your subject. The focal length of 18mm is the full frame equivalent of 27mm. It's not really a very exciting focal length, wide angle, but not wide angle enough to give your pictures that dramatic touch. It'll get you a wide field of view without really adding anything to your pictures. Then again, that might just be exactly what you want. Personally, I'd prefer a slightly tighter focal length, like with Canon's 22mm f2 pancake lens, but that's just me. Let's see about build quality then. The lens is really lovely. I love small pancake lenses. Like many other Fuji lenses, it comes in a very classy presentation box. Despite its small size, it still has both focus and aperture control rings. The aperture ring clicks quite positively between settings. The focus ring turns smoothly, but the lens's autofocus motor, while being reasonably fast, is pretty noisy. I found that the autofocus was a little inaccurate actually, as my copy of the lens had a tendency to slightly back focus. The manual focus system works electronically and not in a very responsive way, and when you're shooting video, you will definitely hear that motor at work, even if you're manually focusing. As a result, it's a somewhat useless lens for video work, unfortunately. The lens has a small 52mm filter thread, and it comes with one of Fuji's interesting crushed metal lens hoods, which I personally really like, although some people find their design a bit offensive. They're certainly efficient at shading the front element. Overall, the build quality of the lens is very lovely, but the noisy autofocus motor is rather a weakness. Let's see about image quality now. I'll be testing it on a 24MP Fuji X-T2. At that wide maximum aperture of f2, the lens is pretty sharp in the middle, albeit with a little ghosting on contrasting edges. Let's see about the corners. Well, sharpness is not disastrously bad. The obvious problems here are more ghosting and strong purple colour fringing. Stop down to f2.8 for a bit of an improvement in the corners and a complete improvement in the middle. Stop down to f4 for perfection there, but the purple fringing back in the corners is still putting up resistance, and it never gives up, unfortunately, sticking around at f5.6 and f8. However, sharpness is quite acceptable at these settings now. So the 18mm f2 gives a strong performance in the middle of its images, but its corners are a tiny bit out of control here. The lens can focus quite closely to your subject, as closely as 18cm, where image quality is surprisingly good at f2. Stop down to f2.8 for very sharp close-up image quality indeed. This lens's maximum aperture of f2 opens up some potential for noticeably out-of-focus backgrounds, and the quality of those backgrounds is generally nice and smooth. Occasionally they can look a tiny bit smudgy though. When it comes to working against bright lights, you'll definitely want to use the interestingly shaped lens hood which is supplied, because flaring is plentiful here. Overall, despite its optical issues, I ended up using the Fuji 18mm f2 quite a lot, and I had a lot of fun with it. Its fast maximum aperture and very small size are very endearing. I wasn't always jumping for joy when I got home and looked at the images close up on my computer though, and that medium wide angle of 18mm doesn't really generate the most exciting pictures. It's one of those lenses that are not particularly great by any stretch of the imagination, but it is small and handy and fun, so you might end up enjoying using it more than you'd think.